Okay, so you know what everyone seemed to be talking about this past Monday?
Oh, yeah. What was that?
This Blue Origin space flight. But here's the thing. It was an all-female crew.
Ah, right. I saw that. Pretty significant.
Totally. Think about the lineup. Katy Perry, the singer, Gayle King from CBS Mornings, Lauren Sanchez, Jeff Bezos' fiance, and then also civil rights activist Amanda Nguyen, filmmaker Kieran Flynn, and NASA rocket scientist Aisha Bowe.
Wow. That's quite a group. Diverse
It's
background.
seriously a real powerhouse. And they all got to experience, 11 minutes of zero gravity.
11 minutes, yeah. Floating. It must be incredible.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? About who gets to go to space, who participates in these, massive moments.
It absolutely does. And, it ties directly into something else that happened recently. Dr. Mae Jemison.
Oh, the first black woman in space, 1992, right? The endeavor.
That's the one.
Wow.
She was actually on CBS News talking about this very flight, and she made a really important correction when the anchor used the phrase mankind.
Ah, okay. That's interesting.
Yeah, it really sort of highlights this bigger conversation we're having, or maybe should be having, about inclusivity in space, how we even talk about it.
Exactly. And that's really what we want to dig into for you today. We're going to unpack this flight, sure, but also connect it to that bigger theme.
Yeah.
Representation in space using what we've gathered here.
Sounds good. A proper deep dive.
So let's start right there with Dr. Jemison. You said she corrected the anchor. What struck me, reading about it, was how immediate she was.
Oh, completely. The anchor, Vladimir Death-Ears, asked her, and this is a quote, "Explain to our audience why even a trip like this one, all the trips that we take into space, benefit mankind." Pretty standard question, you might think.
Right. Seems straightforward.
But Dr. Jemison, she just jumped right in, said, first of all, it benefits humankind, and I'm going to keep correcting the mankind and the man-made and the manned missions.
Oh.
Very. And then she added, this is exactly what this mission is about. It's expanding the perception of who does space. So for you listening, the key isn't just the correction, it's the reasoning. It's about actively changing perceptions.
Yeah, that's powerful. It's not just being picky about words. It fundamentally shifts who you picture doing these things, who belongs there.
Precisely. Language really does shape reality, or at least our perception of it.
Okay, so keeping that framing in mind, let's pivot to the actual flight.
Yeah.
Monday morning, right, around 9:03 Eastern time, launching from West Texas.
Yep. The new Shepard rocket.
11 minutes total flight time. You said it before, but imagine those minutes in zero-G. Reports said they were all smiles inside the capsule.
Well, smiles, yes, but maybe not just smiles.
Oh.
The reports also mentioned screams, apparently during liftoff and landing.
Really? Screams. Okay, that paints a different picture. Intense.
It does. It kind of grounds it a bit, even on these suborbital flights where they go up and come back down without doing a full orbit. The forces are immense. It gives you maybe a more visceral feel for it. It's not just floating gently.
Good point. It's still rocketry. Still pushing the limits. And speaking of coming back down, the landing, I heard Jeff Bezos himself had a little moment.
Huh. Yeah, apparently he tripped in a ditch trying to run over and greet the crew.
No way.
Yeah. Adds a slightly comical, very human element to the whole thing, doesn't it?
Totally. But the crew's reactions post-landing were really something, especially Katy Perry. She actually, knelt down and kissed the ground.
She did. Kissed the Texas dirt. And what's really insightful for you here is how she described that feeling. She called it the highest high. Talked about surrender to the unknown, trust.
That's deep. For an 11-minute flight.
It clearly had a profound effect. And she was holding a daisy, apparently. She said she saw it as resilient, powerful, strong, because daisies can grow anywhere. That's quite a metaphor to connect to the experience.
It really is.
Yeah.
Connecting her personal feeling to this broader idea of strength. And she wasn't alone in the emotion, right? Others kissed the ground, too.
Yeah, several others joined in, and there was that image of Lauren Sanchez hugging Bezos, then immediately running to her family. It just underscores these really fundamental human connections, even amidst this, extraordinary technological feat.
Brings it back to Earth, literally.
Exactly. And Perry also reflected more on the mission's purpose. She mentioned singing "What a Wonderful World" up there.
Okay.
But she made it clear it wasn't about, promoting her songs. She talked about a collective energy, about making space for future women, feeling a sense of belonging, taking up space.
Making space for future women. That ties back nicely.
It really does. And she summed it up by saying it was all for the benefit of Earth, which again suggests this purpose beyond just the flight itself. It's about shifting perspectives, just like Dr. Jemison was saying, expanding who we see doing this.
Yeah, it connects beautifully.
Yeah.
Inspiration, representation, it all seems linked. Okay, let's talk tech for a moment. How did they actually do this? It was the new Shepard rocket, you said.
Right. New Shepard. It's powered by one main engine, the BE-3PM. Think of it as the powerhouse that does the heavy lifting, gets them up there, and brings them back down safely.
And it sounds like it packs a punch.
Oh, it does. It uses liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen for fuel, which is actually pretty clean. Burning the main byproduct is just water vapor.
Okay, that's good to
There,
know.
and the thrust it generates, something like 50,000 kilograms of force. I mean, that's an enormous amount of power needed to push the capsule up so fast.
How fast are we talking?
Over 2,000 miles per hour.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah, more than twice the speed of sound. Mach 2 plus. It's incredibly quick.
Hard to even wrap your head around that speed.
It is. And during that acceleration, the crew feels it. They go through something called max Q.
Max Q. Sounds like something from a sci-fi movie.
Huh. Sort of. It just means the point of maximum aerodynamic pressure on the rocket as it's blasting up through the atmosphere. It's the moment of most stress on the vehicle.
And for the crew, what does that feel like?
Intense pressure. They had experienced about 3 times the normal force of gravity 3Gs pushing them back into their seats. So even on a short trip, it's physically demanding.
Right. It's definitely not just a casual elevator ride.
Not at all. The whole system, the New Shepard, is obviously designed with safety and, well, relative comfort in mind, but physics is physics. Those forces are real.
Definitely a serious undertaking. Okay, so putting this specific flight in context, you mentioned this was Blue Origin's 11th crewed mission. So they've done this before.
They have, yes, building up experience.
But the all-woman crew aspect, I read this was the first time since 1963. Is that right?
That is absolutely right, and that's a staggering piece of historical context for you to consider. The only other time was Valentina Tereshkova, the Soviet cosmonaut, on her solo mission 60 years ago.
60 years. That gap is huge.
It's incredible. It just starkly highlights how rare this Blue Origin flight was, and frankly, the historical underrepresentation of women in space programs globally. For decades, the barriers were immense.
So this flight wasn't just a PR stunt. It really marked something historically significant against that backdrop.
I think you have to see it that way, yes. It carries a lot of symbolic weight because of that history.
Okay, so let's try and pull these threads together for you, our listener. We've got this really high-profile, all-female flight.
Yep, with all the personal stories and emotions that came out, like Katy Perry's reflections.
Right, and we have Dr. Mae Jemison's really pointed call for inclusive language moving from mankind to humankind.
Which connects directly to the idea of representation and changing perceptions about who belongs in space.
Then there's the sheer technological feat. The rocket, the speed, the forces involved.
And finally, that crucial historical context, the decades-long gap since the last all-woman spaceflight, making this one feel quite significant.
It really paints a fascinating picture.
It does. And if you look at all of it together, the flight, Dr. Jemison's advocacy, it really makes you think about what comes next, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Which leads us to a final thought for you.
Considering everything we've discussed, Dr. Jemison pushing for inclusive language, the powerful experiences shared by this crew, what does this flight really signal about the future? You know, who gets to go to space? Who gets to shape how we understand it all?
That's a great question. And maybe think about other moments in space history, too. What other milestones showed a real shift in who got to explore beyond Earth? It's something to mull over, for sure.
Definitely food for thought as we keep looking outwards towards the stars.